As the Bank of Canada debates a summer rate hike to combat inflation, a new survey finds nearly half of Canadians want to see the central bank hold firm.
So for more of the results of this survey, we're joined by Shachi Kurl, president of the Angus Reid Institute. Shachi, great to see you this afternoon. Really interesting because people are clearly worried about interest rates where they are right now and where they're going. Can you talk about some of the stresses people are feeling here?
Absolutely. So to nobody's surprise, debt stress, household stress in terms of costs, especially related to inflation, continue to really dominate and galvanize a sense of uncertainty and a sense of worry among Canadians. So let's just look at a couple of really key data points. First of all, for the first time in more than a decade, we're hearing from Canadians that they feel that they are worse off today than they were a year ago in terms of their own household financial situation. And for the first time in a decade, we're seeing the most Canadians also saying that they expect to be worse off a year from now relative to where they are today. So that represents about 30% each on both of those questions. 1 in 3 Canadians about who are saying that. And again, that represents a high watermark over the last 10 plus years on those questions. About half of Canadians say that they are feeling some amount of financial stress in their lives. And, 2/3 are linking that directly just in terms of the amount of household debt that they're carrying. It's a precarious time for them.
It certainly is. And Shachi, the study also, or the poll also found that 1/3 of Canadians are expressing difficulty paying for things such as housing, a mortgage. And we know that, with inflation of food prices and the gas, it's all getting just way too expensive to live.
So it's a challenge because, as another colleague pointed out this morning, relative to the state of unemployment, for example, in this country, which is often what's driven money stress at the household level among Canadians, at this stage, jobs are abundant. What the challenge is, of course, is people's ability to access disposable income in a way that they have relative to years past. So if you're feeling squeezed because your grocery bill is now it's higher and it's more expensive than it used to be, if you are blanching at the cost of a liter of gas, if all of those things layered in on top of the potential either for rising mortgage rates down the road or higher credit card rates down the road are things that are worrying you, it all represents a period of real uncertainty. And it's what leads to the fact that we're now seeing just under half of Canadians. Admittedly, they're not economists, and the Bank of Canada does not make decisions based on public opinion. But we're seeing about half of Canadians saying, look, if it were up to them, they would have the Bank of Canada stand pat, maintain the status quo for now, rather than raise interest rates further. Now, just over a quarter actually say, no, we got to keep raising those interest rates. But that is where Canadians are at in terms of how they are accepting or greeting or reacting to rising interest rates at the same time that they're seeing rising prices.
Yeah, it's interesting, right, Shachi? Because it seems like people effectively got hooked on the cheap money that we've been used to for so long now here. You just mentioned, obviously, that the Bank of Canada isn't really going to necessarily be influenced by a poll like this, but public sentiment is but public sentiment certainly, is something that needs to be considered. I'm sure Tiff Macklem sort of looks around and kind of tries to take a read of the room. But the other thing is we don't know when these interest rates could potentially stop. And there's that anxiety there, isn't it, that if it goes up again and again, and that's really what your poll finds, is this increased anxiety of where will it end and what's that going to mean to my bills, my mortgages, et cetera. Like, people just worry.
It's very much the question of where is this going? And remember that people were already, amped and pretty sensitive to the where is this going factor due to the last 2.5 years that we've had through the pandemic. There is now the war and the Russian aggression in Ukraine, which is having a real impact on things like the cost of oil, the cost of bread. We understand that there will be wheat exports no longer available on on the global market? What does that mean for people at the grocery store when it comes to staples? So we are seeing, for the first time in a really long time, almost generationally, not only a lack of certainty, but rising prices. And then if you're a homeowner, if you're paying a mortgage, of course, there's a lot of conversations right now happening around the availability of rental and the need to cool markets so that more people can either afford rent or afford to get into housing that they need. Housing affordability, a major driver, especially in this Ontario election campaign. But if you are already somebody who's feeling squeezed by the grocery bill, by the gas bill, by the cost of everyday living, you are perhaps looking at a mortgage that's coming due in the next year, in the next 2 years, and your eyes are getting wider and wider saying, what is that not going to start costing me in the next 12 to 24 months? And that is where we're seeing that anxiety coming from Canadians.
So true. Okay, interesting set of data there. Shachi Kurl joining us, the president of the Angus Reid Institute. Thanks so much.
Thank you.